Hey guys, welcome to Jaxbeautifulyou. In today's video, we are going to be talking about eyeshadow palettes, my favorite subject, specifically Pat McGrath eyeshadow palettes. So Pat McGrath has my very favorite formula of eyeshadow, so I am going to be ranking the eyeshadow palettes that I own in my collection from Pat McGrath, from least liked to most favorite. If you're new here, hi, my name is Jackie and I do beauty and special effects related videos every single week on my channel. I post every single week, a couple of times a week, so if you are into that kind of content, then please subscribe. Also, head over to my Instagram, Jaxbeautifulyou, to check out more looks that I do over there as well. If you are interested in seeing my Pat McGrath palettes ranked, then just keep on watching. Alright, so it's kind of weird for me to be ranking my Pat McGrath palettes because, like I said before, they are my absolute favorite palettes that I have in my collection. I absolutely love the formula of Pat McGrath, and all of my palettes that I have from her are amazing pretty much for the most part. There's one that I maybe don't like as much as all the other ones. I had a hard time ranking these. So honestly, I think most of these are good. All of them actually are good. So this is really just my personal preference. All right, we're going to start off with number 10. For me, her newest one, the Eternal Eden, is in the number 10 spot. It is a quad palette that looks like this. And I just did a review of this palette not too long ago. I'll go ahead and link that up above. But I don't know, I was just a little bit disappointed in this palette. So just for reference, I don't typically go for quads very often, and that's because I like to build my eyeshadow up with a lot of different colors. I really like to blend different colors together, and I usually like to use more than 4 shadows. Although what I do like about this quad is that you can get a complete eye look out of the palette. So I do like that, because another thing I don't enjoy is dipping into other palettes to get a full look for the most part. If I'm going to get a quad, it has to be something really, really special for me to justify this price point, if that makes sense. And I just didn't feel like there was anything super special about it. It's beautiful, it performs well, the quality is great. I just didn't find it exciting or special. In the number 9 spot, I have this Mothership Subliminal Platinum Bronze palette. This is one of her 6-pan palettes. It looks like this. It is a very beautiful palette. Now, I am somebody who wants mattes in my eyeshadow palettes. I need mattes to build my eye look because I have hooded eyes and I don't like to put shimmer on the hood because it emphasizes the parts of my eye that I don't want emphasized. There's only one matte in this palette, and normally that would be a huge, huge problem for me. However, I do find that these like satin finishes from Pat McGrath work really well, and you can use them in your transition areas just like you would a matte, and it doesn't cause any problems. It doesn't emphasize texture, it doesn't emphasize my hood. So this actually is a complete eye look for me, so that I do like. The quality of this palette is also phenomenal. It literally takes me probably 3 minutes to do an eye look when I use this palette because everything in here blends like butter. However, this color story isn't necessarily the most exciting color story ever, so that's why it's in the number 9 spot. But I do think this is an amazing palette if this is like your kind of colors. All right, in the number 8 spot, and I think a lot of people would disagree with me on this because in the best of 2020 and best makeup of best eyeshadow palettes, I saw this ranked pretty high in a lot of people's videos. But for me, because I love mattes so much, that's why this one is ranked a little lower, because there's only 3 in the entire palette. So this is the Celestial Divinity eyeshadow palette. It looks like this on the inside. It is mostly shimmer with only 3 mattes. So you have this really kind of dark maroon colored matte here. You have a light like mauve-y color matte, and then you have a pretty dark reddish kind of brown matte here. The rest are shimmers. So while I do find the shimmers in this palette to be very, very beautiful, I'm not really sure what to do with this because I can't build an eye look off of just 3 mattes, or I can build an eye look off of 3 mattes and then put, you know, a couple of these shimmers on the lid, but I don't want to do that every single time I use this palette. I don't want to use the same mattes over and over and over again with just a different shimmer on the lid every time. That's not, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, I need more mattes than this. I really wish it would have been half mattes, half shimmers. That would have been amazing. I will say that the mattes do perform very well, and the shimmers in here are exceptionally beautiful. Now, there are no special shades in this palette. I just don't find myself reaching for this one that often because I don't want to just use the 3 mattes that are in here over and over again. However, quick tip. If you did happen to pick up the Natasha Denona Trio Chrome palette that has mostly mattes, those two are actually really fun to pair together. This one and that one has mostly mattes, this one has mostly shimmers. So I have been doing that lately, and that's a nice touch. But you might not have that palette. And I don't know, while I find everything to perform really well and very, very beautiful shimmers in here, I just don't feel like it's a complete palette, and I just need more mattes than this. In the number 7 spot, I have the Pat McGrath Mothership 5. This is the Bronze Seduction palette. This is kind of weird to put this palette where it's at because I really love this palette. It's actually the palette I'm wearing on my eyes today, and I love this eye look. So this is what Bronze Seduction looks like. This is actually a lot of people's favorites, and for good reason. It is extremely beautiful, but as you can see, it's a more neutral kind of color story, which isn't something that I'm always in the mood for, but you can also make it not so neutral too. You have a pop of red here, which is super, super beautiful. So today what I did is I put this shade down, I lightened things up just a little bit with this shade. I put this shade right here up on my brow bone, and then I took this special shade right here, and that's what's all over the lid, and then this special shade right here is what's on the inner corner of my eye. Fantastic quality, beautiful special shades. There are 4 special shades in here right over here. If you're not familiar with Pat McGrath's special shades, then you're really missing out because they are truly special in my opinion. But yeah, this is just a beautiful, beautiful palette, but I just had to rank it a little bit lower because it's a little bit more on the neutral side than what I prefer. In the number 6 spot is the Pat McGrath Mothership 2 Sublime palette. This palette is really beautiful. There are a couple of special shades in here that are just breathtakingly gorgeous. Alright, this is what this palette looks like. Really, what steals it for me are these 2 special shades here. This green and this gold are just exquisite. I'm not super, super crazy about these shades that are over in this side. I mean, they're nice, but there's just nothing super amazing about them. I do like that there's a black in here, so you can really make anything from this palette, any look that you try to go towards, you can make it super dark and smoky. And then all of these special shades are gorgeous. But yeah, the green and the gold are just paired together. They're so beautiful. So yeah, if you like this color story, I highly, highly recommend this palette. It is very good. In the number 5 spot, we have the Pat McGrath Mothership 1 Subliminal palette. I love this palette. This is a more cool-toned palette. So if you are looking for a Pat McGrath palette that is more cool-toned, this is definitely going to be for you if you're a cool-tone lover. So it looks like this. I think this palette is so pretty. My favorite shade in here is the blue shade. It is phenomenal all over the lid. It just looks stunning, breathtakingly gorgeous. I think this palette is super cohesive. Every single shade goes together. You can't mess this palette up. I mean, you can literally put any of these colors together and it's going to make sense. And I love this like cool toned type of kind of icy looking vibe that's going on in this palette. I really, really love pulling this palette out in the winter time. I think it just makes some really beautiful winter looks. Okay, number 4 goes to the Blitz Astral Quad. So remember earlier how I said I didn't like quads? I'm making an exception for this palette. This palette is all kinds of exceptions because number 1, it's a quad. Number 2, it is all shimmers. So yeah, I definitely have to dip into another palette in order to use this one, but I don't care because it is so good, and the color story of this is, look at that. Look at this. It's so pretty. I mean, I don't care that I have to dip into another palette to use this, and I don't care that it's a quad. Every single one of these shades in here is a special shade, which is, again, my favorite from Pat McGrath. It's what makes Pat McGrath special, in my opinion. It's what makes her eyeshadows stand out. Not to take away from the mattes, because her mattes are amazing. They blend out like a dream. I mean, literally, there's no other eyeshadow formula that I have ever used, no other matte formula that I have ever used that I just blend it out so quickly. You know what I mean? Like, you can just put them on, blend them out, and they just, it's so smooth, it's so effortless, it's so pigmented. And even if you put too much pigment on, like boom, right off the bat, it blends out so easily and diffuses so easily that you can't, I feel like you just can't mess it up. But this quad is stunning. Absolutely stunning. And my 2 favorite eyeshadow colors are green and purple, especially together. I think a green and purple eyeshadow look is really, really pretty. I also really love blue. I also really love gold. So yeah, these are beautiful shades. Highly recommend. If you're going to get a quad from Pat McGrath, this is the one that I would recommend because, I mean, I don't think I really need to even tell you why. You have eyes, you can see. Okay, these top 3 I kind of went back and forth on because they're just so good, all 3 of them. But I am going to go in the number 3 spot, I'm going to say, is Midnight Sun. First of all, look at this packaging. Is this not the most beautiful, like, artwork? It's so beautiful. Alright, this is Midnight Sun, and the reason I love this palette so much is, first of all, this shade right here, it kind of shifts to like a purple to blue, and it is just gorgeous. But I think this is a really fun and unique color story. I really like how different this color story is. It doesn't have the same kind of like colors over here on this side that some of the other ones do, and I really like this kind of red shade in here. I like how she put this fun, like, almost like hunter green shade there. I just really like the colors in this palette. I really love this like orange shade here. It's really beautiful and pairs super well with this purple. I just think there's so many different options that you can do with this palette. There are just tons and tons of different looks within this one palette here. So yeah, the color story of this I just find to be really unique and beautiful, and the quality, of course, is amazing. Okay, in the number 2 spot is the Divine Rose 2 palette. And again, this artwork is just gorgeous, absolutely stunning. But this palette is, I know a lot of people have raved about this palette, and for good reason. Now, I did get mine in the limited edition packaging. I got mine in this pink packaging here, which I think is just stunningly beautiful. The inside of this palette is to die for. I love this color story so much. My favorite shade is this one right here because, as I have mentioned many, many times, it shifts from a pink to a green shade, which I just think is so fun. And this like hot pink shade here is a lot of fun. All of these special shades here are amazing, but this one right here is definitely my favorite, and the name of it is Sextraterrestrial, which, come on, that's so much fun, really, and I like saying it. It makes me kind of giggle every time, like I'm, you know, in middle school. But I do love the color story, and I think that every single one of these shades performs beautifully. It makes a beautiful look no matter which direction you go with it. All of the shades go together really, really well. I also love that you can take this shade right here and use it as a blush. I really do want to take this opportunity to say how much I wish that Pat McGrath would come out with some blushes and maybe some bronzers. I really love this shade as a blush or just as an eyeshadow obviously too, but I can't recommend this enough. I do not have the Divine Rose 1 palette. That one is a more toned down version of this. It's very, very neutral, and I looked at it when it first came out and I knew I just wasn't going to get a lot of use out of it. It's just not my vibe. It's not bright enough, it's not bold enough, and I just like, you know, more bold types of eyeshadow palettes and looks. So I skipped over that one, but I do know a lot of people who love that palette, so you might want to check that one out if you like softer kind of looks. But for me, this one is like the wild sister to the Divine Rose 1 that totally fits my personality. Alright guys, in the #1 spot, my favorite Pat McGrath palette in my entire collection is the Mothership 3 Subversive palette. I love, love, love this palette. I think it is such a beautiful color story, and I think the artwork is really fun too. The color story of this palette is my absolute favorite. We've got pinks, we've got gold, we've got purple, we've got blue, we've got a black to darken things up, we've got a white shimmer shade for an inner corner highlight. We have it all in this palette. Every single shade in here performs like an absolute dream. I love this palette so much. I think it is so well done. Normally the fact that there's only this like dark matte and this black matte in the palette would be a problem for me, but since Pat McGrath makes her like satiny shades work kind of like her mattes, it's not overly shiny, so you can put those in the crease. Because of that factor, I can use those like I would a matte. Hopefully that makes sense. And so it's not a deal breaker for me that there's only two dark mattes in the palette, if that makes sense, hopefully. But the shimmer shades in here are just these special shades over here in the corner right here are amazing. My absolute favorite is this one right here. It shifts from, I mean, look at this. Is that not the most beautiful shade you've ever seen? I mean, it's just so buttery and so beautiful. And it's like this purple to blue, sparkly, heavenly, divine shade. It is absolute perfection. I love it. This is my favorite color story of all the Pat McGrath palettes I have. Like I said, it performs wonderfully. It is my most used and most loved Pat McGrath palette of them all, and I am really just excited for a new Mothership palette from Pat McGrath. I'm hoping that she comes out with a new one soon, and I really just don't want it to be rose themed. I'm kind of over like the rose theme, you know what I mean? She's been coming out with a lot of that. So I'm just really hoping for something new and fun and exciting. So let me know what you think. Are you a Pat McGrath fan? Do you like the eyeshadow formula? Which one of these was your favorite? What color story do you enjoy the most? And just let me know what you think in the comments below. I really love to hear from you guys. If you found this video helpful, then please give it a thumbs up. I hope everybody is having an amazing day. Please don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!